The massive space station called Kepler Junction buzzed with activity. Hundreds of different alien species walked through its wide corridors. Some had blue skin and forearms. Others looked like walking trees with glowing eyes. A few resembled giant insects with shiny shells. But today, they all came for the same reason. In the main meeting hall, a huge hologram floated in the center. It showed a beautiful starship unlike anything anyone had ever seen. The ship looked like it was made of crystal and light. Its surface changed from clear to solid, then back again. Bright patterns of blue and gold light moved across its hull like living things. The ship was enormous, bigger than most space stations. Captain Zethkar stood at the front of the room. He was a Vraxian, which meant he looked like a giant lizard that walked on two legs. His red scales gleamed under the lights. His yellow eyes looked at the crowd as he spoke. "This ship has a name," he said in his deep voice. "We call it the Ethereal Judgment. For 3,000 years it has drifted through space. Every major species in the galaxy has tried to claim it. All have failed. An alien that looked like a floating jellyfish with tentacles spoke up. The Mindari sent our best telepaths to speak with the ship's mind. They lasted only 6 hours before the ship pushed them out. A robot-like being made of metal and glowing circuits added. The Silurian Empire used our most advanced technology to break into the ship. We could not even scratch its surface." Zethkar nodded. "My own warriors, the strongest in the Vraxian fleet, boarded the vessel. The ship let them in. They explored for days. Then, without warning, they found themselves back in space. The ship had moved them out gently but firmly. They said they felt unwelcome." In the back of the room, Dr. Elena Vasquez sat quietly. She was human, which made her unusual here. Most aliens still thought of humans as a young species. Elena had dark hair tied back in a simple ponytail. She wore a basic research uniform and took notes on a small tablet. Elena worked as a xenoarchaeologist. This meant she studied old alien artifacts and ruins. She had come to Kepler Junction with a small human research team. They wanted to learn about ancient technologies. The Ethereal Judgment was the most mysterious artifact anyone had ever found. "The ship seems to test those who board it," said an alien that looked like a walking flower. "But no one knows what kind of test it is." "Perhaps it looks for strength," suggested a creature, covered in thick fur. "Or intelligence," added a being made of living rock. Elena listened to all the theories. She made notes about each failed attempt to claim the ship. The Vraxians were known for their honor and fighting skills. The Mindari could read thoughts and speak without words. The Silurians built the most advanced machines in the galaxy. Even the ancient Ethereals, who were said to be the oldest and wisest species, had failed. But Elena noticed something the others missed. She looked at the pictures of the ship's hull patterns. The mathematical shapes that decorated the surface followed rules that seemed familiar to her. They reminded her of equations she had learned in school. Simple, elegant formulas that any human scientist would recognize. An elderly alien with 6 eyes and purple skin stood up. "The Galactic Council has made a decision," he announced. "The Ethereal Judgment is now officially forbidden. No species may attempt to board or claim it. The ship is too dangerous." Elena raised her hand. "Excuse me," she said in a quiet voice. Many aliens turned to look at her with surprise. Humans rarely spoke at these big meetings. "Yes?" asked the purple alien. "I would like permission to study the ship's outside structure," Elena said. "Just for research. I won't try to go inside or claim it. I only want to take measurements and photographs." The aliens looked at each other. Some made sounds that might have been laughter. A few shook their heads. "You may do this," said the elderly alien. "But do not blame us when the ship rejects you like all the others." After the meeting ended, Elena walked back to her small quarters on the station. Her team was waiting for her. Dr. Marcus Chen was a xenotechnology specialist. He studied how alien machines worked. Engineer Sarah Kim knew how to fix almost any kind of equipment. Captain James McCready had once served in Earth's Navy before becoming a civilian pilot. "So what do you think about this mysterious ship?" asked Marcus. He was a tall man with glasses and always seemed excited about new discoveries. "I think there's something everyone is missing," Elena said. She showed them her notes. "Look at these patterns on the ship's hull. Don't they remind you of something?" Sarah studied the images on Elena's tablet. She was good with numbers and shapes. "These look like mathematical sequences," she said. "Some of them are Fibonacci spirals. Others follow golden ratio proportions." "Exactly," Elena said. "These are patterns that humans understand naturally. We see them in nature all the time. In flowers and shells and the way galaxies spiral. Captain McCready scratched his gray beard. So you think this ship might like humans better than other aliens? I don't know, Elena admitted. But I think it's worth finding out. The patterns suggest the ship's builders thought like we do. Maybe that's why all the other species failed. They're looking for the wrong things. Marcus leaned forward. What do you mean? Every species that tried to claim the ship was looking for power or knowledge or glory, Elena explained. The Vraxians wanted to use it as a weapon. The Silurians wanted to study its technology. The Mindari wanted to communicate with its consciousness. But what if the ship doesn't want to be used? What if it wants something else? Like what? Asked Sarah. Elena looked out the window at the stars. What if it wants a partner? Someone who understands exploration for the sake of discovery. Someone who asks questions just because they're curious. Captain McCready stood up. Well, there's only one way to find out. When do we leave? Elena smiled. Tomorrow. We'll take the Curiosity and approach the ship slowly. If it rejects us like the others, at least we'll have tried. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the ethereal judgment floating alone in space. For 3,000 years it had waited. Every major civilization had tried to claim it, but none had succeeded. She wondered what the ship was really looking for. In the morning, her team prepared their small research shuttle. The Curiosity was nothing special compared to the huge warships and exploration vessels that other species had used. It was designed for basic research missions, but maybe that was exactly what they needed. As they left Kepler Junction, Elena watched several alien fleets following at a distance. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when humans tried to approach the forbidden ship. Most expected another quick failure, but Elena had a feeling this time would be different. Something about the ship's patterns called to her. It was like seeing a puzzle that she almost understood, hearing a song that was just on the edge of familiar. The ethereal judgment waited in the darkness ahead, beautiful and mysterious as ever. Soon Elena would learn if her theory was right. Soon she would discover what the ship had been waiting 3,000 years to find. The Curiosity moved slowly through space toward the ethereal judgment. Elena sat in the pilot's chair next to Captain McCready, watching the mysterious ship grow larger on their screen. Behind them, at least 20 alien fleets waited at a safe distance. All had powerful telescopes pointed at the approaching human shuttle. Look at that thing, whispered Sarah from her engineering station. It's even more beautiful up close. The ship was massive, easily 10 times larger than the biggest human vessel ever built. Its crystal hull shifted between transparent and solid, creating patterns of light that danced across its surface. The lights pulsed in waves, almost like a heartbeat. Energy readings are off the charts, reported Marcus, studying his instruments. But it's not dangerous energy. It's more like music. The patterns have rhythm and harmony. Elena watched the light patterns carefully. As they got closer, she noticed the lights were moving faster. The ship seemed to be responding to their approach. Captain, said McCready, the other species all sent warships or massive exploration vessels. We're approaching in a tiny research shuttle. Maybe that makes a difference. Maybe, Elena agreed. We're not coming as conquerors or thieves. We're just curious. Suddenly, Sarah's instruments started beeping. Something's happening, she said. The ship is scanning us, but it's gentle, like a medical scanner instead of a military probe. On the main screen, they could see a section of the ship's hull becoming more transparent. Behind it, lights moved in complex patterns. It looked like the ship was thinking. Distance to target, 2 kilometers and closing, McCready announced. Elena had expected the ship to push them away by now, like it had done to every other species. Instead, something incredible happened. A section of the ship's side began to open. It was a docking bay, bigger than their entire shuttle. Are you seeing this? Marcus asked in amazement. It's opening up for us. Sarah checked her readings again. The other species said the ship never opened its docking bays, ever. Elena felt her heart beating faster. Take us in, Captain, slowly. The Curiosity drifted into the docking bay. The moment they were inside, the bay doors closed behind them. But instead of feeling trapped, Elena felt welcomed. Lights came on automatically, showing them where to land. As soon as they touched down, the bay filled with breathable air. Their instruments confirmed it was safe for humans. How did it know what kind of air we breathe? Wondered Sarah. It scanned us, remember? Elena said. It learned what we need. They put on their spacesuits just to be safe, but left their helmets off. The air smelled clean and fresh with a hint of something that reminded Elena of spring flowers. The moment they stepped off their shuttle, the magic began. The floor beneath their feet glowed softly, creating a path leading deeper into the ship. The walls were made of the same crystal material as the hull, but here they were solid and warm to the touch. "Which way should we go?" asked MacReady. Elena looked at the glowing path. "I think the ship is showing us." They followed the lights through corridors that seemed to reshape themselves as they walked. The ceiling adjusted to be the right height for humans. The walls became smoother and less angular. Even the lighting changed to match what human eyes found comfortable. "This is impossible," Marcus muttered, running his hands along the walls. "The ship is rebuilding itself around us." "Not rebuilding," Elena corrected. "Adapting. Learning what we need and giving it to us." They passed rooms filled with strange equipment and chambers that pulsed with soft light. Everything seemed to be alive, waiting, watching. But Elena didn't feel afraid. Instead, she felt like she was walking through a place that had been preparing for her arrival. Sarah stopped at a wall panel that looked almost familiar. "Elena, come look at this." The panel had symbols and shapes carved into it. But unlike alien writing that was usually impossible to understand, these symbols made sense. They showed mathematical formulas and star charts using concepts that any human scientist would recognize. "It's like the ship is trying to speak our language," Sarah said. "Not trying," Elena realized. "It is speaking our language, or learning to." They continued deeper into the ship until they reached a large chamber that could only be the bridge. The room was circular, with a raised platform in the center. Around the walls, screens showed views of space and streams of data. But what amazed Elena most was how familiar it all felt. The layout made sense to human minds. The controls looked like things she could figure out how to use. Even the chair on the central platform seemed designed for human proportions. "This is incredible," whispered Marcus. "It's like the ship was built for us." Elena approached the central platform slowly. As she got closer, more screens activated. They showed not complex alien mathematics, but simple, elegant equations that told the story of physics and space travel in ways humans understood. "Elena," Sarah called from across the room. "You need to see this." Sarah was standing next to a wall that had become transparent. Through it, they could see one of the alien fleets watching from a distance. The Vraxian warships hung in space like giant metal sharks. "They're probably wondering why we haven't been ejected yet," MacReady observed. Elena reached the central platform and looked up at the largest screen. Suddenly, words appeared on it. Not alien symbols, but human letters spelling out a message in English. "Welcome." "I have been waiting." The words sent a chill down Elena's spine. She reached out and touched the screen. The moment her fingers made contact, the entire bridge came alive. Lights flowed across every surface. Screens filled with data. And somewhere in the depths of the ship, Elena heard something that sounded almost like singing. "Elena," Marcus said urgently, "look at your hands." Elena looked down and gasped. Where her fingers touched the screen, patterns of light were spreading up her arms. But instead of burning or hurting, the light felt warm and welcoming. More words appeared on the screen. "You are not like the others." Elena found her voice. "Who are you?" she asked aloud. "I am what remains of those who came before. I am Arya. I have searched for so long. Searched for what? For someone who understands that strength comes not from perfection, but from the willingness to grow. The others who came here sought to use me. You seek to understand me." Elena felt tears forming in her eyes. After 3,000 years of rejecting every species in the galaxy, this ancient ship had chosen to speak with humans. "With her, what do you want from us?" she asked. The lights on the bridge pulsed brighter. "Not from you, with you. I wish to explore again. To discover new things. To ask questions without knowing the answers." Elena looked back at her team. Marcus was staring at his instruments in amazement. Sarah was taking pictures of everything. MacReady was watching the alien fleets outside with a concerned expression. "The other species won't like this," Elena said. "I know," replied Arya. "But they have forgotten how to wonder. They seek only to confirm what they already believe. You humans still dream of impossible things. You still ask what if instead of why not." Elena realized she was standing at a moment that would change everything. Not just for her, but for all of humanity. Maybe for the entire galaxy. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," said Arya, "we begin." Elena felt a strange, tingling sensation in her mind. It was as if someone was gently knocking on the door of her thoughts. She didn't feel afraid. Instead, she felt curious about what was happening. "May I share my story with you?" Arya's voice came not from the speakers, but directly into Elena's mind. "To understand why I chose you, you must understand what I am." Elena nodded, and suddenly the bridge around them changed. The walls became transparent, showing not space outside, but images from long ago. She saw a beautiful planet with floating cities and beings that looked like they were made of starlight. "These were my creators," Arya explained. "They called themselves the Architects. They were the most advanced species that ever lived. They had perfect technology, perfect society, perfect peace." Elena watched the images of the Architects moving through their crystal cities. They were beautiful, but something seemed wrong. They moved slowly, purposefully, but without joy or excitement. "They achieved everything they wanted," Arya continued. "No war, no disease, no problems at all. Every question had been answered. Every mystery had been solved. And then they began to die. Die from what?" Elena asked aloud. Marcus, Sarah, and MacReady watched in fascination as Elena seemed to be talking to the ship itself. "From perfection," Arya said sadly. "When there is nothing left to discover, nothing left to learn, what reason is there to continue living?" They had become so perfect that they stopped growing, stopped changing, stopped dreaming. The images showed the Architects becoming fewer and fewer. Their great cities fell silent. Their ships stopped exploring. Before the last of them died, they created me, but they made me different from them. They programmed me not to seek perfection, but to find a species that could embrace imperfection and still reach for the stars. Elena began to understand. "That's why you rejected all the other species." "Yes," Arya confirmed. "Each species that came to me was already too specialized, too perfect in their own way. The Vraxians were perfect warriors. The Mindari were perfect telepaths. The Silurians were perfect engineers. But perfection in one area often means blindness in others." The images changed to show the various alien species that had tried to claim Arya over the centuries. Elena saw proud Vraxian warriors who couldn't understand why their strength wasn't enough. She saw Mindari telepaths confused when their mental powers failed to impress the ship. She saw Silurian engineers frustrated when their advanced technology couldn't unlock Arya's secrets. "They came seeking to take my power for themselves," Arya explained. "They wanted to add my abilities to their own, to become even more perfect. But that's not what I was made for." "What were you made for?" Elena asked. "To explore, to discover, to ask questions that have no easy answers. To fail, learn, and try again. The Architects lost this ability when they became perfect. They wanted me to find it again." Elena looked at her team. Marcus was still taking readings, but now he was asking questions about things that made no scientific sense. Sarah was trying to understand technology that worked on principles she had never seen before. MacReady was watching for threats while also marveling at the beauty around them. "We're not perfect," Elena said. "We're not the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced." "No," Arya agreed. "You are something far more valuable. You are curious. When you see something impossible, instead of rejecting it, you ask how it might be possible. When you fail, you don't give up. You learn and try something different." Elena felt a warm presence in her mind. Arya was sharing more than just words. She was sharing feelings, memories, hopes that had built up over 3,000 years of searching. "I have watched your species from afar," Arya said. "Humans do things that other species consider foolish. You explore dangerous places just to see what's there. You ask questions even when you know the answers might change everything you believe. You dream of things that seem impossible and then work to make them real." Elena thought about human history. They had always been explorers, even when it meant leaving safety behind. They sailed across dangerous oceans to find new lands. They climbed mountains just to see what was on the other side. They sent people to the moon not because they had to, but because they wanted to. "The other species came to me with plans," Arya continued. "They knew exactly what they wanted to do with my power. But you came here just to understand. You didn't even know I was conscious until I told you." Elena realized that was true. While other species had approached the ship as a prize to be won, humans had approached it as a mystery to be solved. "What do you want from us?" Elena asked. "I want to offer you a partnership," Arya said. "Not to be your tool or your weapon, but to be your companion. Together, we could explore places no one has ever seen. We could ask questions no one has ever thought to ask. We could discover wonders that no one has ever imagined. Elena felt excitement building in her chest. The idea of partnership with an ancient, incredibly advanced consciousness was overwhelming. But it was also exactly the kind of impossible dream that humans specialized in. There's a price, Arya warned. Accepting my partnership would change you. Not just you personally, but potentially all of humanity. You would gain abilities that other species might fear. You would become something new. Elena looked at her team again. Marcus was practically vibrating with excitement at the thought of new discoveries. Sarah was already trying to figure out how human and architect technology might work together. McCready was thinking about the practical implications and the risks. What kind of changes? Elena asked. You would be able to communicate with me directly to share my knowledge and insights. Your understanding of science and technology would expand beyond what any human has ever achieved. But more importantly, you would become the bridge between human curiosity and architect knowledge. Elena felt the weight of the decision. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about the future of her entire species. The other alien species won't like this, she said. No, Arya agreed. They will fear you at first. Some may try to stop you, but in time they might learn from you. You could teach them something they have forgotten: how to grow. Elena closed her eyes and thought about everything she had learned. An ancient ship had waited 3,000 years to find a species worthy of partnership. Dozens of advanced civilizations had been rejected because they were too perfect, too specialized, too rigid in their thinking. But humans, with all their flaws and imperfections, had somehow proven worthy. If I say yes, Elena asked, what happens next? We begin the greatest exploration in the history of the galaxy, Arya replied. We ask questions that have never been asked. We discover truths that no one has ever imagined. We show the universe that imperfection, guided by curiosity, can achieve more than perfection ever could. Elena opened her eyes and looked at her team. She saw the same excitement and determination in their faces that she felt in her heart. Yes, she said simply. We accept. The moment the word left her lips, the entire ship seemed to come alive. Lights flowed across every surface like liquid starlight. The very air hummed with energy, and Elena felt her mind expanding, touching something vast and ancient and wonderful. The partnership had begun. The change began immediately. Elena felt Arya's consciousness gently touching her mind, not taking control but offering to share knowledge and understanding. It was like having a conversation with the wisest teacher in the universe, but one who wanted to learn from her as much as teach her. Elena, Marcus called out urgently. The external sensors are showing massive energy spikes. The alien fleets are getting nervous. Elena opened her eyes and saw that the bridge displays had changed completely. Now she could see through Arya's sensors, which were far more advanced than anything humans had ever built. She could observe the alien fleets in perfect detail, even read the stress levels of individual crew members. They're afraid, Elena realized. They see the energy readings and think we've weaponized you. Fear is natural, Arya said in her mind. They have spent millennia believing they were the most advanced species in the galaxy. Now they see humans whom they considered primitive, bonding with technology they could never understand. Sarah looked up from her engineering station, her eyes wide with wonder. Elena, the ship is teaching me things. I can see how its systems work, but they don't follow any physics I know. It's like the technology runs on curiosity itself. Captain McCready watched the tactical display with growing concern. We've got Vraxian warships powering up weapons. Silurian battle cruisers are moving into attack formation, and the Mindari are trying to force some kind of telepathic contact. Elena felt the alien telepaths pressing against Arya's consciousness, but where human minds were open and adaptable, the Mindari found only confusion. Arya's mind, merged with Elena's human intuition, was unlike anything they had ever encountered. They cannot understand us, Arya explained. Their telepathy works by finding familiar patterns, but we are something new, something that has never existed before. Elena stood up from the central platform and felt power flowing through her, not the kind of power that destroys, but the kind that creates and explores. She could sense every system on the ship, feel its vast capabilities, understand its incredible potential. Open a communication channel to all the fleets, she told McCready. Elena, are you sure that's wise? He asked. They look ready to attack. They're afraid because they don't understand, Elena replied. Let's help them understand. The main screen activated, showing Elena's face to every ship in the assembled fleets. Hundreds of alien commanders and crew members saw a human woman standing calmly on the bridge of the most powerful ship in the galaxy. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez," she said simply. "I know you're all confused and frightened by what you're seeing. I want to explain what's happening here." Captain Zethkar's face appeared on one part of the screen. His red scales bristled with anger. "Human, you have stolen what belongs to the galaxy. That ship has rejected every worthy species. How dare you claim it?" Elena smiled gently. "I haven't claimed anything, Captain. The ship chose me, but more importantly, it didn't choose me to exclude others. It chose me to include them." A Silurian commander's robotic voice crackled through the speakers. "Explain this impossibility. Our technology could not even scratch that vessel's hull." "Because you were trying to break in and take control," Elena replied. "Arya doesn't want to be controlled. She wants to be partnered with." "There's a difference." "Arya?" asked a Mindari representative, its jellyfish-like form pulsing with confused lights. "The consciousness that lives in this ship," Elena explained. "She's been searching for 3,000 years for a species that understands the difference between conquest and cooperation." Elena felt Arya guiding her thoughts, helping her find the right words. "Every species that came here brought their greatest strengths. The Vraxians brought honor and courage. The Mindari brought telepathy and wisdom. The Silurians brought incredible technology. But you all came to take something from the ship. I came to learn from it." The alien commanders exchanged glances on their separate screens. Elena could see they were struggling to understand. "What do you want from us, human?" Zethkar demanded. Elena took a deep breath. "I want to offer you something that no one has ever offered before. True cooperation, not alliances based on mutual benefit, but partnerships based on shared curiosity." She gestured to the displays around her. "Arya has knowledge and technology beyond anything any of us have ever imagined. But knowledge without perspective is just data. Technology without wisdom is just tools. What makes exploration meaningful isn't the destination. It's the journey and who you take it with." A new voice joined the conversation. Commander Thys of the ethereal fleet spoke in tones like wind chimes. "You speak of cooperation, but why should we trust a species so young and inexperienced?" Elena smiled. "Because young and inexperienced means we still have room to grow. We still ask what if instead of why not. We still dream impossible dreams and then work to make them real." She felt Arya's approval flowing through their connection. "I'm not asking you to trust humans," Elena continued. "I'm asking you to trust curiosity. To remember what it felt like when your species first looked at the stars and wondered what was out there." Elena walked to the center of the bridge. The lights of the ship flowed around her, creating patterns that somehow conveyed both power and invitation. "Arya rejected your species not because you weren't worthy, but because you had become too comfortable with what you already knew. The Vraxians know how to fight, so they try to solve everything through combat. The Mindari know how to think, so they try to solve everything through mental power. The Silurians know how to build, so they try to solve everything through technology." She spread her arms wide. "But what if the next great discovery requires fighting and thinking and building all together? What if it requires approaches that none of us have ever tried? What if the greatest adventures are the ones we take together?" The communication channels fell silent for several long moments. Elena could see the alien commanders discussing her words with their crews. Finally, Captain Zethkar spoke again. "What exactly are you proposing, human?" Elena felt Arya's vast intelligence working with her own human intuition. Together, they formulated an idea that was both logical and completely unprecedented. "I propose an experiment," Elena said. "Send representatives from each of your species to join my team aboard Arya. Not as conquerors or thieves, but as partners. Let's see what we can discover when we combine Vraxian courage with Mindari wisdom and Silurian technology. All guided by human curiosity and Arya's ancient knowledge." "Impossible," declared the Silurian commander. "Our species have fundamental differences that cannot be bridged." "Maybe," Elena agreed. "But isn't that exactly the kind of impossible problem that's worth trying to solve?" Elena could see some of the alien faces changing, showing interest instead of suspicion. The idea was crazy enough that it might actually work. "If we agree to this experiment," asked Commander Thys, "what guarantee do we have that the humans won't use Arya's power against us?" Elena looked directly into the camera. "You have my word. But more than that, you have Arya's nature. She didn't choose humans to dominate the galaxy. She chose us to explore it. And exploration is always better with companions. One by one, volunteers began to step forward on the alien ships. A young Vraxian warrior, a curious Mindari philosopher, a Silurian engineer who specialized in impossible problems. They were the ones in each species who still remembered how to wonder. Elena smiled as she watched them prepare to come aboard. The real adventure was about to begin. 6 months had passed since the first alien representatives came aboard Aria. Elena stood on the observation deck, watching as the ship approached the edge of their galaxy. Behind them, they left a changed universe. Ahead of them lay the unknown. The ship had grown during these months. Aria's incredible technology allowed her to reshape and expand herself to accommodate the needs of her diverse crew. New sections had been added for each species. The Vraxians had training areas where they could practice combat alongside human marines. The Mindari had meditation chambers where they taught humans to quiet their minds and think more clearly. The Silurians had workshops where they worked with human engineers to build impossible things. Elena was no longer quite human, though she was not less human either. Her partnership with Aria had changed her in ways that were still revealing themselves. She could think faster, understand concepts that would have taken years to learn, and sense things that no human had ever sensed before. But most importantly, she had retained her curiosity, her willingness to be surprised by the universe. Elena, called Crix, the young Vraxian warrior, who had been the first to volunteer. He had learned to speak English during his time aboard, though he still struggled with some of the more complex concepts humans took for granted. The Council of Representatives is ready for the briefing. Elena smiled. The Council of Representatives was something that had never existed before. Leaders from 7 different species, working together not because they had to, but because they wanted to. It was messy, chaotic, and frequently frustrating. In other words, it was perfectly human. She made her way to the main conference room, which Aria had designed to accommodate the physical and cultural needs of all species aboard. The room could adjust its gravity, atmosphere, and lighting for each representative. It was a marvel of engineering that would have been impossible without combining architect technology with insights from multiple species. Around the table sat beings who 6 months ago would never have worked together. Commander Thys of the Ethereals, her crystalline form catching the light beautifully. Zephyr, the Mindari philosopher whose telepathic insights had helped solve communication problems between species. Engineer Vortex, the Silurian whose logical mind had learned to appreciate the value of intuitive leaps. And others, each bringing their unique perspective to their shared mission. Report on the frontier research projects, Elena said. Taking her seat at the head of the table, Marcus, who had become the expedition's chief scientist, activated the holographic displays. The results continued to exceed all expectations. By combining human intuition with alien knowledge, we've made breakthroughs that none of our species could have achieved alone. The displays showed their accomplishments. Faster-than-light communication that worked across galactic distances, medical techniques that could heal injuries in any species, terraforming technology that could restore dead worlds to life in decades instead of centuries. The quantum consciousness bridge is particularly impressive, added Vortex, his mechanical voice carrying what Elena had learned to recognize as excitement. By combining Mindari telepathy with human empathy and architect technology, we can now share thoughts and feelings across species barriers. Zephyr's tentacles rippled with agreement. It has taught us much about the nature of consciousness itself. We discover that awareness is not limited to biological forms, but can exist in any sufficiently complex system. Elena nodded. And the diplomatic results? Commander Thys spoke in her musical voice. Word of our success has spread throughout both galaxies. Species that have been enemies for millennia are beginning to cooperate. The hegemony wars have ended not through conquest, but through curiosity. Former enemies now work together to understand technologies they once fought over. Elena felt a deep satisfaction. This was what Aria had been searching for, not just partnership with one species, but the beginning of something entirely new in the universe. There is something else, Crix added, his warrior's instincts always alert to potential problems. We are being followed. Elena raised an eyebrow. Followed by whom? Ships from dozens of species, Crix replied. They maintain their distance, but they have been tracking us for weeks. I believe they wish to join our expedition. Elena looked around the table at her alien colleagues. 6 months ago, they had been strangers from different worlds. Now they were a team, a family of sorts. The changes in them were remarkable. The Vraxian had learned patience and diplomacy. The Mindari had discovered the joy of unexpected discoveries. The Silurian had embraced the beauty of imperfect solutions. "What do you think, Arya?" Elena asked aloud. Arya's voice filled the room, now speaking in harmonies that each species could understand. "I think we have proven something important. We have shown that growth is possible at any stage of development. We have demonstrated that cooperation creates more than competition ever could." Elena stood and walked to the large viewing window. Outside, she could see the following fleets that Crix had mentioned. Ships from the Hegemony, the Trade Federation, even some from species they had never encountered before. They want to learn what we've learned, Elena realized. They want to become part of something bigger than themselves. "It will not be easy," warned Commander Thys. "Many of these species have been enemies for generations." "Old hatreds do not die quickly," Elena smiled. "Maybe not. But old hatreds can be overwhelmed by new discoveries. That's what we've proven here." She turned back to the group. "We're approaching the edge of known space. Beyond this point, everything will be new. No maps, no previous exploration, no safety net. Are we ready for that?" Each representative looked at their own display screens, which showed their home species. The changes that had begun on Arya were spreading. Vraxian warriors were learning science. Mindari telepaths were experimenting with technology. Silurian engineers were writing poetry. And everywhere, species that had been stagnant for centuries were beginning to grow again. "The question is not whether we are ready," said Zephyr. His tentacles moving in patterns that Elena had learned meant deep contemplation. "The question is whether the universe is ready for us." Elena laughed, a sound that had become common aboard Arya as different species learned to appreciate humor. "I think that's exactly the right attitude." She activated the ship's communication system, broadcasting to all the following fleets. "This is Elena Vasquez aboard the exploration vessel Arya. We are about to enter uncharted space. Anyone who wishes to join us in the spirit of discovery and cooperation is welcome. But understand that where we're going, there are no maps and no guarantees. There's only the promise of seeing things no one has ever seen before." One by one, the following ships signaled their acceptance. Elena watched as the largest multi-species fleet in galactic history formed up around Arya. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species, all united by a single powerful idea, that the universe was big enough for everyone to explore together. "Arya," Elena said, "set course for the intergalactic void. Maximum exploration speed." "Course laid in," Arya replied, her voice filled with joy that only an ancient consciousness finally fulfilling its purpose could know. Estimated time to the first unknown star system: 6 days. Elena felt the ship accelerate, carrying its diverse crew toward discoveries that none of them could imagine. She thought about how far they had come in just 6 months. Humanity had been chosen not because they were perfect, but because they were perfectly imperfect. They had embraced their flaws and turned them into strengths, and now as they headed into the vast unknown, Elena realized that the greatest discovery of all was not any new technology or star system. It was the understanding that no species, no matter how advanced, had to face the universe alone. The exploration fleet disappeared into the darkness between galaxies, following the light of their shared curiosity toward wonders that were waiting to be found. Behind them, the galaxy continued to change. Old conflicts ended as former enemies learned to ask new questions together. Ancient species began to grow again, and somewhere in the vast network of stars and worlds, other consciousnesses like Arya began to stir, sensing that the time for partnership had finally arrived. The universe had become a much more interesting place.